Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome back to the 13th episode of the InterSTEM podcast. Wow, 13 is a lot. And today we will be talking about some rapid fire debates about, various STEM topics and some ethical issues. So, just in case you guys, first off and foremost, my name is Gordon Chang. I'm 16 years old and I'm currently a junior at Rancho Cucamonga High School. So, Andre, Mana, can you guys also introduce yourselves in that specific order?
Hi everyone, I'm Andre. I'm 16 years old and I go to Beckman High School as a junior in Irvine.
Hi, my name is Mona. I'm also 16 years old and I'm a junior at Los Altos High School.
God, well, that really makes the first question really easy since we're all on the same playing field. So, guys, like, how's your winter break? Like, have you guys been chilling or have you guys been hustling?
For me, so far, it's been pretty relaxing just because I think I was doing a lot more stuff over Thanksgiving break. But at the same time, there's different things going on for next semester that some people may want to prepare for. So I think that some of my friends are really busy. But myself, so far, I've been pretty relaxed. I think in the other part of winter break in the next week, I'll probably be doing a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say the same. It's been pretty relaxing so far, but as Andre said, I think I'll probably wake up in the second week of break and step on the accelerator.
Yeah, now I feel sad because yeah, okay, other than like really being able to sleep in, I've been working pretty hard because like there's just next semester everything's gonna come. Whether it's sports tryouts, club elections, and just like all sorts of things, AP exams. Yeah, I mean, I did have a good vacation, Thanksgiving break, but yeah, now I'm back, and unfortunately, I have to wake up every day in the morning and say, yeah, got to go to work.
Yeah,
Sad. It's,
so
it's not paid either.
Oh, well, I
Yeah.
think that brings it to a larger question of when we're on break, whether it be winter break, Christmas break. Oh, wait, that's the same thing. Winter break, Thanksgiving break, summer. Should we be productive, or do you think it's just a time to relax, spend time with family, friends, etc.?
Depends on the time period. I mean, like, let's be honest, the three of us here, we're juniors, all right. And at this point in time, it's really important that we, work hard because college applications are coming out next year for us. And I hate to think about that, but yeah, sorry, it just takes me out of the zone. But yeah, it's coming. So as of right here, right now, I think the three of us can agree that it's time to start hustling. And next year after we get into Stanford, the three of us, that is when we get to spend time with our families.
Well, first I'll have to wait for that. And also,
Calling the shots.
yeah. But everyone does say that second semester of junior year is always generally the hardest, and combined with senior first semester, which makes a ton of sense. So I agree. We will have to put on the gas pedal. Um, I just think that right now I'm slightly procrastinating for this week, and then I'll hopefully get back into the kick of things into next week. Okay, so with all of that said, I think that we can start debating. So, we just want to introduce the format of everything. We have a ton of questions which we haven't discussed before. We just said, oh, do we want to discuss this? Yes, check, check, check. And so, first, we'll just start off with something that's not an ethical concern necessarily in the scientific community, but it's a question that's pretty important to scientists, and it doesn't just affect scientists; it affects a lot of different industries. And that question is a zero waste society achievable? What do you guys think? I guess Mana, maybe do you want to start off?
Personally, I think that zero waste societies they are achievable, although the prospect of it is very unrealistic. I think bigger cities would have trouble achieving it because everybody might not be on board with the idea. But smaller cities, like I know there's one in Japan that's actually zero waste, and they've been able to manage and keep up their quality of life. So yeah, I think in some parts of the world it definitely is achievable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for a lot of smaller, financially like sustainable, I guess, or communities where there's not major hurdles with other parts of their lives, namely the economy, I think that that's really achievable. But I don't think that it's something we can do in as a world, unfortunately, within the next 10 years, and that's kind of sad. But I think that we'll be able to do it ultimately. I wouldn't put a date on it because honestly, sometimes I think that dates are just statements and they're not really actionable things. It's a start. It's a start. But I'll hope for the best. I just don't think right now, within the next 10 years, it's achievable.
Yeah, doesn't seem realistic to me. I mean, hypothetically, I get it. There is a lot of logic behind it, but I don't know if the entire world can pull off something like that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so that was a good starter, just to warm up. But now we're going to add another layer onto it. We're going to be having a timer, and each of us will have 1 minute to quickly state what we think on a question in a given debatable topic. And so we'll see how this goes. This is our first time doing it. We'll each get 1 minute. But one thing that we decided to do is that if we want to rebuttal or just add to what someone is saying, we can get maximum 30 seconds. So there's even more so of a crunch. But I think it'll be really interesting because we'll be super stimulated because we have a time limit. And we'll see how it goes. So the first question is, should we impose population controls? I guess, oh, okay, since I introduced it, I'll just quickly state what I think, because I have a very iffy position, and that's why I want to say what I'm saying first and then have you guys start off or respond to what I'm saying. I do not think that population controls is something that a lot of people would agree with, and that's one of my main problems with it. Is that it's just not feasible for society. Society won't agree with it, and for that type of control, you need like almost unanimous support, I think. But there are certain countries where populations are just growing exponentially to where it is useful, and so taking that into consideration, I think that only for certain countries it kind of makes sense. But like, for example, a one-child policy is just way too restrictive for me, and I don't think that someone should be told like, oh, you cannot have one other kid, because some people that makes their livelihood, and so it's a moral and also logistical issue, which is to me why it seems so challenging. As you kind of just saw, I'm pretty conflicted. So, what do you guys think?
I actually completely agree with you, Andre. I think instead of imposing regulations on population control, like I guess as you said, the one child rule in China, it would be better if we could somehow educate the population with explaining contraceptive use, birth control methods, and just explaining that the overall quality of life gets better if you have less children. So I think instead of imposing those regulations, it would be a lot better if we could, uh, I guess, fund educational programs like how we're doing in Africa and just parts of the world that don't have the access to the resources that we do.
Okay, so see, I'm a bit more on the fence with this one. See, the thing is like, it's like I feel like we should have some amount of population control because the population like skyrockets, it's kind of over for us. So I think that it's probably just really important that, I don't think we should necessarily be like, as restrictive as like I think some people have been thinking, but like definitely I think we should educate the public. I think the government should like, hey, like try to figure out a plan to like ethically tell people that, hey, having less children is good because not only because it truly is. I mean, we just have overall more resources to share, and it's just going to be far easier to manage less people than it is to have like, like 10 billion people. I don't know when that estimate's going to come true, but again, it's definitely going to be far easier on the world to have less people.
Okay, that one had a pretty seamless view on it. But the next one might be also unanimous, or it might not be. So we'll go with this question. Should trans fat be banned? In other words, should we just completely eliminate it from being on the nutritional labels whatsoever and having it in any products?
Yeah, so I personally think that trans fat should be kept because, like, I mean, I like bacon. I like eating a lot of fatty foods and stuff, whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that personally just got to manage it, right? You just have to be able to personally say like, hey, hold yourself to this amount, and just keep yourself at like a steady pace, right? Because I mean, anything in excess is bad, and it's all about moderation. That's the issue at hand. So I think that like like if you're gonna ban like something like trans fat, you're gonna have to like ban like sugar and stuff, like anything that's like bad. If you have a little bit of it and if you can control that, it's completely fine. The issue is not with trans fat. The issue is with people not being able to handle themselves. That's my statement. That's my hot take.
I completely agree with Gordon. If you can have it in moderation, then I guess prohibition of trans fat is completely useless. I honestly can't help thinking, but about the prohibition era of the 1920s where they banned alcohol. And supposedly it was bad for you, it was bad for your lifestyle, but people still found a way to get around it in the black market. They still had it. So I think completely prohibiting the sale and the consumption of trans fat would not really be applicable in the end. People would still have it. They would find ways to have it. And yeah, it's honestly up to them. If they want to keep a balanced, healthy diet, then they shouldn't have that much.
So I'm really glad that you guys mentioned that because I have a slightly differing perspective on it. I watched this really insightful lecture maybe a year ago during COVID, and it was about how alcohols and different types of fats, namely trans fats, and a lot of unhealthy substances in daily products like Coke or other sodas or just bacon that's genetically modified, and the professor proved how trans fat is essentially a poison, and over time, we are to some extent poisoning our bodies. And while I can see, okay, people have that choice, and it's not to the same extent as some other like dangerously poisonous substance, I do think that it would help communities, particularly who aren't aware of the risks of trans fat, and I think that it can add a lot to people's well-being, especially again those communities who don't know and can't receive that education.
I'm gonna have to step in there, Andre. I mean, like, I get where you're going with this, but I mean, if you're gonna like ban trans fat, would you ban like sugar and alcohol, which again, completely feasible, but like, at the end of the day, people have to understand like what they're putting into their bodies. People have to understand that what they're doing is bad. So, would it make sense to like just ban trans fat? Because like once you do that, the floodgates open. You know what I mean?
I can see that. I was trying to look for it just now, and I believe that at one point a certain type of sugar was banned. Don't quote me on it, because I have 30 seconds for my response. But I'm not sure that it was banned for sure. But there are some like dangerous forms of sugars, and that's more common sense because they're like more actual poison. Like you have those types of modified sugars, and the outlook doesn't look too good. Um, I honestly don't know. I'm still very conflicted, but I still lean towards trans fat being bad, in that we can take some action against it a little bit. Okay, so next topic is a little bit deeper, um, and in the past this has been a controversial issue, and I think it still slightly is. And it's, should euthanasia be allowed? Just human euthanasia, should it be permitted? Yeah, Mana, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, so for euthanasia, I do think it should be allowed. It's with the consent of the patient, and uh, yeah, with the consent of the patient, they should be allowed to, I guess, leave the world in a way that they agreed upon and in a way that wouldn't cause them any pain. Um, and I guess it's a matter of them having control of their bodies and what they decide. And at the end of the day, it should be up to the patient wholeheartedly. Andre, what do you think?
I think that euthanasia should be allowed. animal or human euthanasia as long as there's an explicit reason, which I think in the vast majority in cases there is a reason why euthanasia should be allowed, and why it is. But namely, and this is not like what I was thinking. This is actually when we were discussing what questions to talk about. Mana mentioned this because it's hard for us not to talk about our answers as we choose questions. And one thing that you mentioned, full credit to you, is that for terminally ill patients, there's no better outcome in a lot of cases, unfortunately. And so I think that it's a lot more beneficial, as you were saying, that euthanasia should be allowed for those people. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, so same thing with you guys. I'm gonna say yes, but it's not like a normal yes, right? Like if you ask me like, oh Gordon, do you like Korean barbecue? I'm gonna say yes. This is a different yes. Like this, I mean, like I hate to admit this, but like I just feel like yeah, overall, like people should have control over their bodies, and this honestly goes like hand in hand with my last question, right? You choose what you do to yourself, and overall, no one's gonna stop you from doing that. So I mean, at the end of the day, if people are consenting to it, if people have made that choice, then I mean, overall, then you just got to respect it because in their perspective, that's the best way that they want to handle themselves. And I will not stop anybody from doing that. I mean, again, that is a pretty dicey debate, but that is my stance on it.
Okay, I think that we also agree pretty much on that one. The next one we'll see because it's actually a debate topic that I've never heard about before until today. And so the question is, should organ donation be compulsory for all United States citizens? The United States citizens is verbatim what like prompts say, but just for the sake of argument, should organ donation be compulsory? What do you guys think?
So I'm gonna say no because like at the end of the day, like even if these people are no longer with us and all that, I feel that it's wrong to just take something away from somebody. Now, if they if they consent to it, that's that's a whole other thing. But this is whether or not it should be compulsory, which not big on vocab here. I think it means forced, right? Or mandatory. Yeah. So I mean, I just don't like that. I just don't like the fact that hey, like once you are gone, that your body is like I guess just tampered with without consent, and if you make that a mandate, like that's just bad because there are a lot of people out there who let's say for religious reasons or otherwise that they don't want that to happen. So I think that it is wrong and immoral to kind of just put that out there.
I also agree, particularly with religious or other sacred views that some people have. And I do think that there's a reason why people have wills. And I think that one reason is to state their wishes when they die. And so I think that that's the best place for someone to say if their organization, if they would like to have their organs donated after being deceased. I really don't think that it would be super feasible, or not just feasible, like, I don't think that the public would agree with it too much. But I do have to acknowledge the other side because there are like major medical benefits to that. There's a lot more research that can take place and innovation in the medical field, or even beyond, whether it be like biomedical engineering or other areas. So I see the other side, but for me, it's a no.
So for me, I'm kind of teetering on the line here. I don't think it should be made mandatory. However, I do think that something for us to do is to encourage organ donations and I guess the culture of organ donations. Because so many people wait years to find organs that are compatible to them, and the need for donors is definitely growing exponentially. And given that organ donations do save lives and there's no rational objection to it, I think the things that you have said, that there may be some ideological objections, religious objections, but at the end of the day, organ donations do save lives. And I think it shouldn't be made mandatory because that does impose on certain freedoms, but something should definitely be done to spur that culture even more.
Actually, you did bring up some good points about like spurring the culture, and to me, that's similar to what we were discussing with imposing population controls and how the population can just be generally more educated about the benefit or drawbacks of imposing population controls. So that's interesting. I think on that one I was very conflicted. This one I lean more towards that it shouldn't be compulsory, but now what you said about being educated, I think is pretty important.
All right, so I can lead with the next question. Should immunization be mandatory? Gordon, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, what is this? It doesn't do much bad to the society to like immunize the entire population. All that's happening is like kind of like a vaccine, right? And you're just becoming more safer. So I don't understand, the arguments against it. I feel like there's nothing wrong with it. So why not? It doesn't have any like long-term side effects. It just makes you stronger. And that is something that is very important to me.
Okay, I'm just gonna interrupt really quickly. I totally understand your point of view, but a lot of people argue that it's infringing on certain freedoms, like freedom of choice of whether or not they want to get vaccinations and immunizations. What do you think about that?
I mean, how far do you want to stretch with like freedom of choice and stuff? I understand like that viewpoint and stuff, but like there comes a certain point in time where like certain rules have to be mandated, right? Like obviously, like people like they are punished for assault and whatnot. And I mean, I feel like that goes a part of that because like overall, like you're just keeping the overall population safe by having yourself be immunized. And I think that although it does like kind of restrict your freedom, like it doesn't give you like a choice. Like what is the argument against it? What is wrong about immunization itself?
Yeah, I personally can't speak for those arguments. I can rebuttal like those arguments that people make a little bit, because people say that we infringe on their rights and whatnot, and that's been done many times in different countries. But I don't think immunization is a case of that because, in a way, we are expanding our freedoms because we're allowing people to actually like go outside and not have to feel scared because they could potentially die without their vaccine. And so we're allowing life to return back to normal and get away from a virus that has killed so many people and not just had those extreme health effects, but also have had some major economic effects. So it's not just about freedom of speech and how it's being stripped away from people, but I think in fact that it's the other way around, in that vaccines are an opportunity to go back to normal, and that's why I think that's pretty important. For other vaccines that aren't COVID, it's slightly harder to say. The status quo, and what I agree with, has been that when you go to school, you get shots that are mandatory for the protection of others and to be able to partake in the education that we have. But I don't I don't see the other way around with particularly COVID. The only thing I do want to mention real quick, and I might be going over a little bit of time on this, is that when I think of immunization, I don't just think of vaccines. I can also see someone saying that herd immunity falls under immunization. Immunization is the means of getting people immune to a virus. And I think most people would hopefully agree, but the idea of herd immunity with almost any disease without any vaccines just doesn't make sense. It's not feasible. And especially if we're applying that to this question, should herd immunity be mandatory? I don't really think many people would say that it should be mandatory, but it's just another layer on top of vaccines that I tend to think of with immunization.
I completely agree with both of you. I just wish that there was a way of going about making immunizations mandatory without disengaging like entire populations who may not feel that way. So I know it sounds super trite, and all three of us are not from places where there's a lot of anti-vaxxers or people who don't believe in the scientific community. But I guess, if we can find ways to not isolate those populations and instead educate them, um, then that would be best. You wouldn't even have to make immunizations mandatory. So yeah, it sounds so silly, but there are people who don't believe in that type of stuff. And at the end of the day, their opinions are still valuable, and you have to make them feel like they're members of society. So
Yeah, I agree. What you said at the end is very true. They're humans. We don't agree with what they're saying, but education's a good mean. It's just not super feasible though, because I think we've tried that a lot, and unfortunately, people don't entirely see the value of the vaccines, and that's their personal choice and opinion. But I do think, for the sake of the community and going back to normal, that making that actually specifically with COVID mandatory would be a really useful solution to help everyone, including the people who don't agree.
All right, I think we pretty much concluded that conversation. It was great and all of that, but my question to you guys here right now, real quick, is should animals be tested on for medical purposes? Like, for example, like, when people like test a lot of monkeys to create pharmacy drugs. So, Mana, any thoughts on that?
I know this is gonna sound so sad, but I do think that it's important for animals to be tested on for medical purposes. Um, at the end of the day, there are human lives. There has to be some sort of trade-off with human lives and animal lives, and we can't just give drugs to humans without knowing their side effects and yeah, just what effects they might have. So if we can find more sustainable ways and ways that are less harmful for animals, then go for it. But I think as of now, um, mice, monkeys, a lot of species that have the same DNA structure as us and um, are not on the verge of being endangered or extinct. I think, yeah, they should be utilized for those purposes.
I agree pretty much with everything that you said, and I would like to slightly briefly expand on how animals, in a way, can be given more sustainable methods when they're tested on. And I think that when it comes to mice or monkeys, that there are ways that scientists can mitigate or reduce the effects that those animals could potentially physically feel when they're being tested on. And I think that, as you said, that's somewhat easier, and there's a trade-off between animals and humans. To do that with humans would be much harder to like mitigate that pain. Um, and if we don't test it, as you said, on animals, then who are we going to test it on? So
Yeah. Oh God, I feel terrible, but I agree with all you guys, but I feel like it is necessary because at the end of the day, like human lives are at risk, and I mean, I know it does sound bad, but let's be honest, your humans are more important than animals. I think from human perspective, we don't. I mean, come on, like it's not the worst thing that we've done to animals. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it's completely necessary for us to survive, right? And because a lot of important things that have been developed from such testing, and it's really benefited mankind. And although like certain animals' rights have been infringed upon, unfortunately, animals just aren't humans, and we don't hold them to the same standards that we hold most humans. So that is my stance on it. I am sorry, but that's how it is.
I'm also eternally sorry. I feel like a villain saying this, as I think we all do, but I think that our arguments kind of make sense, as unfortunate as it might be. So,
Pretty cruel stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day, that is our three stances on it. Pretty tough, but God, I feel terrible now.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. Which has more options, an English or science degree? This one is going to be a bit controversial, but I think it'll be a bit fun.
Look, I will say this now, and hands down, a science degree gives you way more options than an English degree ever will. I mean, what I hate to say this, but what good is an English degree? And I'm sorry to all the English teachers out there, but I don't know any beyond the ones that are at my school. So what exactly does an English degree do? Not a whole lot.
Well, okay, for us, I think all of us we're slightly biased. For me personally, a science degree hands down is probably more useful. When you look at like attending college, though, most likely you'll be taking similar classes as an English major at the beginning, maybe within the first 1 to 2 years. And then you can still take those extra classes. People who are interested in getting their masters, or maybe more so like medical school, often don't take biology or biomedical engineering or some health bio related major because you can get in with dance or music or a humanities major like English. Um, I don't think it matters too much for me. Yes, a science degree is better, but for which one has the more general options overall in life, I think that an English degree is much better off because if you're wanting to work and let's say science doesn't work out, or even if it does work out, there are the options where an English major might help you. Whereas if you're going for like some communications job and you have a science degree, it won't majorly disadvantage you. I think I'm not an expert, but I would say that in those general like cases, I think that it's much more beneficial as an English degree actually.
I think it really depends on whether you already have the command over the English language already. I would say for us in America, it wouldn't be an English degree wouldn't be as useful as in contrast to other places like maybe India or China, where knowing the English language actually gives you a lot of business opportunities. Whereas in the US and our background, I feel like a science degree would hold a lot more options, career options, and yeah, all sorts of options.
I mean, so you just gave me like a counter to what you're saying, I think, because um, this is like a general question, like which one has more options in general? To me, I know it's very technical, but it didn't specify in the United States, so I'll point that out. I'm trying to give myself a free point wherever I can see it.
That's
But
fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I'm just gonna further my point here. Let's do an activity, guys. Can you guys name anyone that's like a very famous person with like an English degree? Can you? I don't think so. But go ahead, please try.
I am not I don't have the knowledge of a famous people encyclopedia, unfortunately. I really don't know many famous people and what degrees they got, so I can't say anything. I'm speechless in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. See, there you go, there you go. Like for people with like famous, like done like famous like science stuff, like you have guys like Stephen Hawking, right? Who was like all about like astrology and stuff, and that falls within the category of science. And yeah, so I think that is going to wrap up our discussion. Anyone want to keep debating me on this, or am I the undisputed winner of this round?
No, I wouldn't say you're the undisputed winner. I
Undisputed.
think we both have points, and at maximum, I'll yield you that and say that we both have like fair points, but I'm not going to deem you the winner.
All right. Well, just for reference, undisputed winner. Should we move on or?
We can move on, otherwise it's just going to get too
True.
much.
Yeah, it gets a bit nasty. All right, so the next question that we have here is, should an animal species be distinguished? So I have a fairly controversial take on this one, but you guys go ahead.
For me, it's a hard no. Um, I know you could pull up saying that there are certain species that are kind of a burden on the planet, like I guess mosquitoes and cockroaches and things like that. But they're all part of some sort of food chain and food web. And who knows, there may be some organisms that sustain themselves and can survive because of those species. So for us to meddle in that web, I think it wouldn't be great for us either in the long term.
and adding on, I think that I have the same viewpoint as Mana in that it's almost like taking trees or plants away from an animal species because, as you were saying, with a food source, you're taking that potentially away from them. And so, trees, plants are, of course, a major source of food for a lot of animals. But another thing I like to mention is that there's still other options than just extinguishing animal species. There's a lot of research that can allow us to modify their DNA so that it's more beneficial for all organisms rather than just eliminating. And even if it's like a bug or a spider or like a small bird, some of them that may be a burden to other organisms are like insanely biodiverse and add a lot to the planet. Um, so in like 99.99999 repeating percent cases, I would say that I don't think that they need to be extinguished.
God, all right, here comes the yes. Okay, and allow me to explain why. I guess personally, I hate mosquitoes and cockroaches. Like I hate them. All right, but the thing is about mosquitoes is that they actually cause malaria in like a lot of countries, and that absolutely like destroys the population, and it harms a lot of people. And as we said earlier, as we've established earlier, humans are more important than animals. So in regards to the issue of I think the food web and food chain stuff, like Singapore has actually created they've actually created like sterile mosquitoes that like apparently like, they don't suck blood or whatever. And good on Singapore. They did a solid job with that one. So I mean I think that is an alternative as to just like straight up wiping out a species. But the initial species would be extinguished, but everything would most likely go on as normal and human lives would be saved. So I mean I don't know how you guys want to respond to that.
Um, I have to say I really wanted to argue with you on this, but I think that we found the alternative. Like I love Singapore. I could go on a rant about how Singapore is so great. I've never been there, but I think that those alternatives are the best solution. Do you think you have an idea or a situation where animal species need to be extinguished versus looking for other methods or tools to change whatever the issue is with that species or the effects it might have on others? It's a challenging question, I think, but
Okay, so the only circumstance where like that would not like harm the food chain would be like animals that are like more or less like extinct already, where there's like just like one or two populations, like white rhinos. If you wiped out white rhinos, or I don't know which rhino, but like if you wipe those rhinos out, not much would change. So that would have zero impact on the ecosystem, and it wouldn't. Yeah, that's absolutely terrible. I love rhinos, but in that circumstance, if somebody wanted to do that, it would not harm the ecosystem.
I
But
I actually
morally, it's wrong.
I disagree with that because you might say that those rhinos are not adding to the ecosystem right now, but who knows, 100 years in the past, they may have actually had some really great benefits that we aren't even aware about. And who knows, increasing the amount of white rhinos in the world might actually solve global warming. Like there's so many factors that extinguishing a species, I feel like, breaks a lot of those possibilities.
I mean, white rhinos did, but they no longer do. And I'm saying that, like, as of this moment, as of like right here, right now, like they don't have much of an impact. Now, I love rhinos. I absolutely love them. But
but
wiping
then
them out
in
wouldn't
that
be.
case, I get why it doesn't need, or why they can, in theory, be extinguished, those two northern white rhinos. But at the same time, like, why do you need to? The question is, should an animal species be extinguished? You don't really need to do that, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, in this instance, like no, but yeah, I wouldn't say that because like there's just unintended consequences of I guess just wiping out a certain like cumbersome species, and yeah, that's how I'm gonna close it.
Okay, well, and then in that case, I would deem Mana and I the indisputable winners, I
The,
think.
the undisputed winners.
Undisputable.
I proposed the alternative, but you know what? I'll be the bigger
Well,
man,
we,
and
we
I'll let
met
you
in
guys
the middle. We met in the middle, I think, a little bit.
met in the middle. All right, it's cool. No
I think
fights.
I think all three of us had really great views on that, but I'm going to move on to the next question. And this is going to be our final one too. Should mining on asteroids be permissible? What do you guys think?
I'm gonna say yeah. I mean, I don't see the issue with that. I mean, it's not like asteroids are alive, and it's not like anyone lives on the asteroids, but which there are would be cool. But again, back to the next question, we would probably wipe them out because I don't want aliens in my planet. All right, I'm still a teenager. I want to go to college and go have a good life. I don't want to worry about that. But yeah, so I mean, mining on asteroids, it would be a very valuable resource, and I don't see the ethical concerns with that. I mean, again, not an astrologist, probably never will be, but yeah, I think it will be extremely beneficial to all of us.
I, for the most part, agree that it should be permitted. A lot of my answers with a lot of ethical issues like these are that I'm always somewhere in between, which kills me inside. But in this case, I would say that there needs to be certain amounts of limits, because obviously we don't want to just like extract all the like a special type of rock on, I don't know, let's say we wouldn't even get there, but like Venus. Let's say a human goes there and extracts. Not feasible, but a robot. I think there should be limits, but I don't really disagree much, to be honest, with what you said, Gordon. It's a first. It's a first. We always disagree.
Yeah, I think asteroids have a host of resources on them that we humans on Earth could definitely use, and it would significantly boost our economy too. But we are polluting other how do we call this, places that we don't really know who or what lives on them and what benefits they have on the spatial ecosystem. I don't know if this is the right word for that, but I do think that for humans, at least in the short term, and as we know of it now, mining on asteroids should be permissible.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider space an ecosystem. There's nothing alive in space, at least in our immediate, solar
That we
system.
know of. Wait. I want to point out a trend, Gordon, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
totally a lighthearted trend. There's a
yeah.
theme with you dehumanizing things. It's pretty interesting when it comes to animals, when it comes to asteroids, and now entirety of space. It's nothing exactly wrong with it, but it's a trend.
You completely ruled out alien species, Gordon. How could you?
That's true. I did, honestly. But you know what? Look, as I said, I'm just a high school guy. I don't really care about what's going on outside of me. Like, I'm dealing with my own issues. So if there are aliens, praying to God that the United States, can handle that. Okay, now that sounds wrong, but again, look, I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. Let's just
Gordon,
put it
how
at
do you
that.
want to handle them? More dehumanizing effects and stuff like that?
I mean,
No,
it's
no,
like
no.
the same thing. It's like
Yeah, totally.
mosquitoes, right?
I get what you're saying in
There
in
you
the
go.
end.
There you go. Like, y'all ever watch the Alien movies? There you go. That's when you want to. That's where you want to, I guess, just pull out, your resources and stop that. So I don't want xenomorphs on.
Clearly, Gordon has never read The Martian, but I think we can put a pin on this debate for now.
Yeah, I agree. We don't want to. Um, wait, I'm gonna cut it at. I agree, because I don't know what to say. Okay, let me pause it. Okay, I almost freaked out and I thought that it wasn't recording, but it's.
All right, so I think we've had a pretty stirring debate. We've talked about a host of different issues that are actually being discussed in our scientific community these days. A bunch of ethical questions, moral questions, and I guess questions that are just really applicable to the world that we live in today. So Andre, Gordon, and I, we really hope you guys enjoyed this debate. It was a little bit different from what we usually do, but I think we all had a lot of fun. Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. Oh, wait, Gordon, do you want to do our we'll start making it a tradition. Do you want to do a self plug for the organization?
Self plug for the. You mean for InterSTEM, right?
Yes.
All right, guys, please, if you haven't done so already, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Or if you're watching this on Spotify, do whatever. Try to follow it. I don't know how that works. But yeah, overall, this is a phenomenal podcast, guys. Share this with your friends, because why not? We really need that plug. And yeah, overall, just please join InterSTEM when you have the chance. This is an amazing organization, and you will find nothing but benefits here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you guys. Join InterSTEM. Thanks.